Hello, welcome. I'm super excited about today's topic. We are going to be talking about love, of course. I am the love coach here, and I help women to find peace and clarity and reconnect with their feminine nature and cultivate a lasting, loving relationship. And today, the question that we are going to answer is, what's love got to do with it? Love is a very confusing thing for many people. It can cause extreme joy, it can cause extreme pain, it can lift us up and make us capable of conquering the world, and it can push us down and make us not able to accomplish anything. So what is love? We're going to be talking about some of the different behaviors, emotions, beliefs, and things associated with love. We're going to talk about what is not love. And we're going to also talk about some of the different stages of love. First off, let's look at, in general, when we think of love, the most primary love that we think about is between person to person. And this really starts with our childhood and our family. We learn to love through our families, and that could be a great thing or that could be a not so great thing, depending on your parents, your family, your situation. But for many people, the love of their family is the beginning of learning how to love in their life. The other type of love we think about is is relationship love. So two partners in love with each other. There's been songs and poems written about this, and philosophers and writers throughout the ages have really focused on what love is. So let's jump in with, that I do have a definition of love, but let's start with understanding what is not love. Love, when love feels bad, when love is possessive or codependent or leaves you feeling empty, this is not what love is. There may be love in addition at times, but this is not what love is. Love is not about serving someone else or expecting something from someone else. Love is not about making someone else happy. And love is also not about walking on eggshells. And if you ask two different people to define love, you might get two very different explanations. I think about, Inuits or Eskimos and how they have all these different words for snow. They have fluffy snow and slushy snow and wet snow and thick snow and old snow and new snow. All these different definitions because there's all different types of snow. And I think of love in the same way. We have the love for our pet, the love for that difficult family member that we're barely able to love. We have a love for maybe an ex that we wish well for them, but we don't want to be with them. We have a love for a crush that's maybe unrequited. And then we have real, true, in love between two partners that is mutual. So that leads us to, when you do meet that partner, what's up with the stages that we go through? In the beginning, this period is, we have a comment that says, "I love bacon." Nice. In the beginning, when we first meet someone and we feel all sorts of butterflies and excitement and emotion, this stage of love is actually called limerence. Limerence. So limerence is like the honeymoon period. This is where you have chemicals like adrenaline pumping through you. It's very exciting. You might think about the person all the time. They distract you from your work and what you need to do. And this limerence honeymoon period usually lasts as long as 18 months to 3 years. And there's a very specific reason for that, because when you look at the evolution of humans and evolutionary psychology, 18 months to 3 years is just enough time for us to meet someone, make a baby, have a baby, and then be able to move on from that relationship. So it doesn't serve us so well nowadays, because many relationships start out in this honeymoon phase, and they think that that's what love is. And that's what movies tell us. Movies tell us that when you can't get someone out of your mind, that's love. When you're totally obsessed with them and you can't wait to see them and you feel this roller coaster of emotions, that's love. Um, but limerence actually does fade away, and with a true love, lasting love relationship, it actually changes into um, something called affectional bonds. So affectional bonds, I like to think of it as deep love. So one of the funny things that I notice, I've been a matchmaker and I work as a love coach and I help women through their dating process and getting back out there and meeting people. And one of the things that I've noticed is sometimes a first date happens and the two people come out of it saying, there just wasn't a spark. And okay, sometimes this means there's no attraction and it's never going to happen. But sometimes people are expecting this artificial thing that happens with our neurotransmitters and our internal chemicals that create anxiety, and they confuse the butterflies and excitement and anxiousness actually for love. So just throwing this out there for anyone that's single, dating, meeting new people, if you don't feel an immediate spark, fireworks, give it a chance, especially the women. People can grow on you, and sometimes the best people for you, you're the best match for you, might not be someone that gives you total butterflies and sparks and all of this. I mean, one couple that comes to my mind is my own mom and my stepdad. They've been together for almost 25 years. They're in their 70s. They're beautiful and so in love. And they've always been really in love since they got together. But in the very, very beginning, I remember my mom saying, "Oh, I don't know. She said he didn't dress very well." And she was like, "I don't know if it's him." But she gave him a chance and he really grew on her. And they're an amazingly balanced, great couple. So sometimes not having that immediate spark is not a bad thing. Sometimes you do have the spark right away and it leads into a beautiful relationship, which is what happened in my own relationship right now. I could definitely say I felt love at first sight. That's a question I get from people often is, does love at first sight exist? And my answer is no, not really. Even though I just said I felt it. But I think love at first sight is simply attraction and hope. you know, I can look back and say, yeah, I was attracted to my partner and I felt hopeful that we would be together. And now I can look back and now that I do know him deeply and he does know me deeply, and we do fit the definition of love, which I will share in a little bit. Now I can look back and say, oh, yeah, I felt it right away. But I didn't really know him deeply and he didn't really know me deeply. So we had attraction and we had hope. And thankfully, it did turn into a long period of limerence. And now we're going into this period of deep love. So you might feel that spark in the beginning. You might not. But even 6 months in, a year in, 2 years in, you're still mostly in that limerence honeymoon period. So, another piece of advice, a tip I would give is be be cautious about how quickly you get serious and get married and things like that. You want to make sure that your limerence period actually does lead into deep love. So, what is deep love? How do you know that you're in deep love? Well, the first thing is that it's persistent rather than transitory. So, it's enduring, it stays, it lasts. Even when someone bothers you, you still have affection for them. Because, nobody's perfect and we're going to have spats and disagreements, and that's okay. You know, Strong communication can get you through disagreements, but the feelings of affection will last. Um, you feel a strong attachment to that person. You want to be near them. You want to be close to them physically. You want to share affection with them. Um, when you are separated from them, it can lead to distress. You miss that person when they're gone. You want to feel close to them. And this kind of love, this affectional bond, this deep love, it has a major impact on your life and the life of the person that you share it with. So, we've talked a bit about the stages, the stages of love, what is not love, um, and what is deep love. And let's see, should we jump into the definition here? Or, yeah, let's do that. And then I'm going to share this screen with you real quick. Share. Okay. So here we go. It's a long one. This is actually from a book by Brene Brown, who is an amazing researcher of shame and love and vulnerability. But this is my favorite definition that I have found anywhere. We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known. And when we honor this spiritual connection that grows from that offering with trust, respect, kindness, and affection. Love is not something that we give or get, it's something that we nurture and grow. Love is a connection that can only be cultivated between two people when it exists within each one of them. You can only love others as much as we love ourselves. Shame, blame, disrespect, betrayal, and the withholding of affection damage the roots from which love grows. Love can only survive these injuries if it is acknowledged, healed, and rare. Let that sink in for a minute. So let's kind of go through this bit by bit because there's a lot here. The first part, so we cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be seen and known. A common mistake that people might make when they're jumping into a relationship or when they're dating is not only do they put their best self forward, but they actually kind of hide things about themselves or augment things about themselves. They're fake in some way. They try to be what they think the other person wants or what society tells them to be, um, instead of just being their natural, quirky, somewhat weird, vulnerable self. And when relationships start out that way, they always fade out. They just don't last because in order to have love, you have to be vulnerable and be deep and be able to be seen and known for who you really are. If you love someone for something that they're not, eventually that will fade away. And vice versa. If someone loves you for something that you're not, eventually that will fade away. I'm guessing that hits home with some of the listeners of this right now. You've probably experienced that before and been there. Sorry for that. And so the next part, so we cultivate love also when we honor the spiritual connection. So this is big because we all have different definitions of what spirituality is to us. It could be, various religions. It could be just feelings that you have. It can be a lot of different things. And I'm not here to tell you, one is right or wrong or anything. I actually believe that we have an energetic body, which is related to our spirit and our spirituality. And we have a need within us to constantly be seeking the spiritual. And that's why all of these religions on our planet exist, and other spiritual practices and ideas. So if we completely ignore our spirit or the connection of our spirit with this other person's spirit, again, love fades. Love, it doesn't grow when we don't have that spiritual connection. And the spiritual connection could even be something that's not talked about. It doesn't have to be a primary focus of the relationship, but it has to be there. There has to be some spiritual connection. Furthermore, we have to treat our love with trust, respect, kindness, and affection. So trust, it's, again, with being vulnerable, we have to be able to trust that we can be vulnerable with that other person. When someone lies to us, this is at the end here where we talk about betrayal and disrespect, we lose that bit of trust that we have for them, and it needs to be rebuilt. Respect, we need to give respect, but we also need to earn it, and our partner needs to earn it. Kindness, this is, of course, always thought of when we think of love, even the love of pets or family or any kind of love, we think of kindness. And that's huge. And it's something that, if you've been in or are in a relationship that is not doing well, on the rocks, you see that there might be problems or the end, when kindness goes away, that's a big red flag. John Gottman at the Gottman Institute has the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and it's 4, I might need to look it up to make sure I tell them all correctly, because I might not remember off the top of my head, but contempt is one of these signs. There's these 4 signs that if these things happen in a relationship, it usually leads to an ending of the relationship. So if you have contempt for each other, that's really the opposite of having kindness and affection. The affection piece, something that can help you grow your affection or keep the spark alive with your current partner, is gratitude. If you wake up in the morning, for example, my mom and my stepdad, who have this beautiful 20+ year relationship, when they wake up in the morning, whoever's up first, they make each other coffee. And you could think about this as, well, you just need to do that for me, so you do it, and great, we can move on with our day. And if you don't, I'm going to be upset. Or you can look at it as, wow, you did this for me. I am so grateful. I'm so appreciative. That's so amazing. It's sort of like you can look at the world as if nothing is a miracle or everything is a miracle. So when we talk about gratitude and being grateful, I would recommend be grateful for everything, every little thing. You came into this world a naked baby with nothing. So anything that you have above and beyond that is something to be grateful for. And with our partners, the more we could be grateful for them, the more we create that affection and kindness, and really help love to grow. Love is kind of like a plant. It's like a growing organism that if you neglect it, ignore it, or feed it bad things, it will eventually die. And if you nurture it and feed it with the things that it needs, the trust, the kindness, the affection, it will grow and it will flourish and it will blossom and it will become something beautiful in itself, which then, as someone who has that love, you get to partake in and share and let that influence the rest of your life too. This is an important piece too, that love can only be cultivated between two people when it exists between both of them. Because we all have either been there or know someone who's been there, that the love is one sided. And it's a sad situation because the love is not growing, because it can't be so one sided. So it needs to exist between both of you. This is another tricky one, that we can only love others as much as we love ourselves. There was a study that I was reading about women in addiction centers, and some of them have kids and babies. And, there were quotes from the mothers that said, no, I really love my children so much, but I don't love myself at all. And what it comes down to is they really weren't able to love their children more than they love themselves. Because imagine the harm and the hurt that they were inflicting and bringing to their children's life. They say they love them, they feel love, but if we look at the full, true definition of true love, pure love, all of this, it doesn't fit that. So that's why also there's so much talk about self-care, self-love, caring for your own well-being. And that's really the first step in my love coaching program for women also. I make sure that the very first thing they do is look at their own well-being, put themselves as their number one priority, give themselves the affection, compassion, and love that they need before they can work on a relationship with someone else. Sort of like put your own mask on before assisting others on the airplane. Yeah. And in the last section, so we're all human. We make mistakes. Shit happens. And sometimes these things can come into our love relationships: shame, blame, disrespect, betrayal, or even withholding of affection. You get in a fight with your loved one and one person says something disrespectful and then the other one withholds their affection. Oh no, these things are damaging the relationship. But a strong relationship can survive that if these injuries are acknowledged and healed and rare. So you think about, you and your loved one have this fight, someone says something disrespectful, one withholds their affection, they come back around and they're like, yeah, that, when you said that, I felt this, and here's what I need from you. And the other person says, well, when you said this, I felt this, and here's what I need from you. Okay, so how do we repair this? Well, I'm sorry for hurting you. Yeah, I'm sorry too. And you can acknowledge it. You can both heal from it. And it has to happen rarely. If you're fighting like that every single day, I'm sure that's a recipe for the end of a loving relationship. So here it is. I bet you have probably never seen a full definition of love like this. Maybe when we get to our Q&A, if you guys have questions or comments about a time when you thought you were in love, but looking at this definition, you see that it doesn't fit this definition, it probably shows you, oh yeah, that was wrong, and that's why it ended. Yeah. There you go. So before we jump into our question and answer, I want to point anyone who is struggling in their love life right now, or who has questions, or who would just like to talk to a professional love coach, you can book a complimentary session with me on my website at hearthunterslovecoaching.com. I offer a free Turn Your Love Life Around session where I'll answer your questions. I'll get to understand your patterns and where you are. And I'll tell you all about my program. I do a 3-month program, a 6-month program. I work with groups and individuals. So feel free to check out my website to book a complimentary call with me. And then on Instagram, I'm Heart Hunters Love Coaching. And on YouTube, you can search for Whitney Coburn. All right, so we'll open up to questions or comments.
Hey, Whitney, it's Oscar. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Sorry, I'm speaking with my mic off as usual. You have limerence, then affectional bonds. Is there a third stage?
No.
That's levels off there. Okay.
No. There are, depends on who you ask, depends on what you're looking at. We could come up with other stages and definitions, and there's probably dips in relationships. You've been married a long time, right, Oscar?
36 years, I think.
Yeah. So you've seen there's stages, there's dips, there's other things that happen along the way, but
so we plateau off at the affectional bonds. All right. I'm like, third stage I don't know about. I need to call Whitney immediately.
I have a question too.
Yeah.
So that stage that you were talking about, I guess the honeymoon stage, limerence, that's what it's called, right?
Yes.
Can that be like a shorter time period? Because I noticed like in most of my relationships, it doesn't even get to the 6 month to a year part. Like I'm over it sooner than that. So is that just that it's not a good relationship, or is it that, that I just get over it quickly?
So yeah, there's something else happening there. It's not just the fading away of the love feelings, because the limerence and the affectional bonds they're physical. Like you can measure them in your body based on the chemicals. There's the adrenaline and testosterone that are created by this limerence stage are different than in the affectional bond, where it's more oxytocin and other types of chemicals that create the relaxing, calming feeling instead of the adrenaline boosting feeling. So what you're talking about, and I picked up on how you said that you usually are the one to lose interest, right?
Yeah.
So usually when people are the one to be ending the relationship a lot, it's because of some innate fear of what a relationship could become. So a lot of times they have parents that have a relationship that they wouldn't want to have. So either the parents divorced or the parents stayed together, but they watched the parents fight or have animosity or have some kind of thing that subconsciously deep down, it's like, oh God, we're getting close to a relationship and I know how bad relationships are and I'm going to push this away and get out of this before it's too late while I still got all my senses. And all right. And a lot of times with women, that compounds with the fact that our masculine and feminine energies are out of alignment, because we live in a male dominated world where we lead with our masculine energy, because it's like, I got this job to do. I got this to do today. I have my list. I'm going to do this. Plan here. You do that. You do this. I got to pick up this. And And by the end of the day, we're exhausted.
Exhausted. Yeah.
And
You know what though? One thing I picked up about what you said is the honesty aspect. Is because I think that because sometimes there's, and this is what I hated about dating, there's this mind game thing where he's like, you first is like this act of, like you said, you put on there's this little fluff going on, and you really don't know if it's real or not. And I think it just kind of like plays with your mind in the sense of, is this the real person? Right. And it's almost like in slight, you're saying to yourself, uh, when the moment I see the real person, I'm out. Right. It's like, I don't want to see the real person. Let's keep the fake stuff up. And then, but the moment the realness, the reality of the personalities come into play, because I strongly believe that personalities have a whole lot to do with the dynamics, right? I go with the DISC personality test. And so basically, if you are a D personality and you're, always, you have to be, you're primarily in charge, and, you have a little bit of the I in there where, and the C where, you have to have more, all the details have to line up in order for you to kind of make that solid decision. And if all the stars don't align the right way, then it's like, that's not the right decision. Your personality, it really has a lot to do with making that decision. So I think, in just being aware of that, that, if you want to be in a relationship, you have to kind of like say, I want to be in a relationship.
Mhm.
Right. I think that's like the first thing, is just coming to that acknowledgement, just even based on what you're saying, coming to that acknowledgement in your mind that I want to be in a relationship, and then kind of facing what that means.
Yeah,
Right.
don't be picky like Amanda.
No, I mean, think about it.
Damn.
I mean, one of the biggest things I think we're afraid of is the humanness of relationships, because we're all human. And so we all have a part of us that is jacked up. I mean, that's real talk, right? There's a part of us that is like, leave the toilet seat up, or, just something. We have these weird, quirky things that we don't want anybody else to know about, right? And the moment they know about it, it's become a little more intimate than you want.
But you know what? When you learn to love and accept that about yourself,
Wow.
and then you share it, and you find someone else that loves or at least accepts it.
Accepts it, right? Yeah.
It's so magical. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So in your studies, people say opposites attract. How much of that is true? Because if you're like way on different poles.
So similar values are what's important. So you need to have similar values. If you both value saving the planet, equally, and you both value long-lasting relationships, you have to think about what you both value, because if you have different values, like one person really values friendship and hosting and social events, and the other one doesn't, it can cause conflict. So that's where you don't want to be opposite. You don't really want to have a lot of opposing values, but you can have different interests. I mean, if I started, if you start dating someone that cooks and you've never cooked before, it could be really interesting to learn from them. And also there's the masculine feminine polarity, which we did another video on before, but
my favorite.
yeah, masculine and feminine energy are like poles that attract each other. So a very feminine woman will attract a very masculine man, and vice versa. So that's a little bit of opposites attract. You might have like a good girl that's likes a guy that's adventurous and dangerous, because it's just that side of his masculinity that's very attractive to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I think that's also very true, because like, for instance, and my wife and I, we are personality wise, we are so different. I mean, I walk in a room and I make it a mission to connect with everybody in the room. Okay, it's just a natural part of who I am, right? I mean, connecting with people, makes me happy. That's my happy place, right? And getting along with people and finding that human connection. And her connection is more with, she's very much more organized and like administratively detailed. I mean, I can't tell you, her mind amazes me because she walks in a room and she sees everything. I mean, we'll come home and she'll say, "Did you see this?" And I go, "No, I didn't see that." And it's just amazing how her mind works. So I think, for us, it's just like I've accepted that she sees details, which on sometimes, depending on the day, annoys me. And then there's some days where I'm like, yeah, that actually works out in our favor, right? And I just accepted that, and she's accepted that I don't see much of anything. I see what I want to see, you know. But that's a good example of that.
Yeah.
Oscar, you look like you have something, man.
Yeah. When my wife, I think is probably related to your wife, because we'll go to a social event and she's like, in the car, the first question is, what time are we leaving? Like,
Right.
we haven't gotten there yet. Wait a minute. Like, I'm leaving after I spoke to everyone. Then we'll leave.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody needs to know what I do, why I do what I do. Do you love to do what you do? It's like, yeah, it's definitely a different kind of a speed.
Even if people think at first that they're not opposites, eventually when they get to know each other deeply enough, they'll find all their differences.
Yeah.
So it's a mistake to try to find someone that's exactly like you, because there's no one in this whole world who's exactly like you. And in order to have a relationship, you need some of that polarity. Like you said, I bet as a team, you guys do awesome, because as a team, you're focused on the people and how they feel and the details and the logistics, and
Right.
you're able to like take on the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Yeah.
my ideal relationship of my mom and my stepdad, it's the same thing. They're very different. She's the social, outgoing, caring
Mm-hmm.
one, and he's the detailed planner. And they recognize that about each other.
Right.
Yet they want the same things out of life in general. So they have the same values and goals, but they just go about it in different ways. And it ends up helping them both out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because,
Partnership.
the broad strokes person needs that detail person, right? Because we look at things, holistically, and the details, sometimes those details are what really gets you in the end. Whereas, the person who is detailed, sometimes they don't see the big picture, and then they're focused on that little thing is out of place when the big picture is like so beautiful. So is I think we balance each other in kind of showing each other's point of view.
Yeah.
And I being able to listen to each other and kind of hear that perspective, I think is what gives balance to the relationship.
Yeah. It's
Because
definitely about what you do with it. Once you recognize these differences, do you berate the other person for them? Do you scold and criticize them for having that trait? Or do you have gratitude and appreciate that about them and have affection for them, regardless of whether it gets on your nerves sometimes?
Exactly. So, I mean, again, before we go, please give the folks your information so that they can have it.
Yeah, Amanda, did we answer your question? We sort of like bled right into more conversation, but I wanted to give you an opportunity.
I think you answered it. Basically that that it's not, it needs to last at least 6 months to a year for it to be something that, and there's probably other things that personally made me cut off a relationship sooner. I try to look at it too, like maybe I just know that, you know, because it's kind of like what you were saying, when you connect with people in the beginning, sometimes they show you somebody that's not really who they are. And then 3
Right.
months down the road, I'm like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
you're not the person I fell in love with, lust with, or
Mhm.
limerence with. But yeah, so I think that that's more what it is. It's not something that you can build forward. And I guess to build something forward, it has to be that 6 months to a year. You have to still have those feelings
Yeah.
for it to
So
grow into the
in
affective stage.
real estate language, you're not looking to buy the house, you're renting with an option to buy.
If I'm looking at the house and it's deceiving, like, you know, they covered up the
Right.
cracks in the wall and they, you know,
Yeah,
stuff
the
like
leaky
that.
base, the
Can I
leaky
get an
pipes in the
inspection
basement.
over here?
Yeah, I need an inspection. And then I
Yeah.
get the inspection. If it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
pass the inspection.
Yeah. You know what? Because for some people the priority is just honesty, you know,
Yeah.
and I think,
Mhm.
you know, I think just in assessing what you're saying, like the right person for you is just an honest person.
Yeah. I mean, I'm super honest. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
just
I'm not perfect either, but I don't really, I mean, I don't think I hide anything. So it's, you know,
right. No, I'll tell you the truth. And I'm going to say this before. I've said it before, but I think it's very effective. I know our love coach could tell, but I mean, when my wife and I first met each other, we were both at the place of where the games of kind of like pretense was not on the top of our priority list. So when we went on our first date, it was so honest. I think it freaked the both of us out because it was almost like one of those. It wasn't a movie kind of date where, you know, you're like, hi, you know, it wasn't that kind of. It was more one of those, you know, really just kind of like laying the cards on the table. But it was so refreshing because
Yeah.
when we both left, it was like, that was pretty cool.
Real person over there, and they're not perfect. They're real, and I'm real, and I'm not.
Right. Yeah, it was just when we left the table, it was like, okay, I would do a second date. Yeah, for sure. Because it was just there was almost like no fluff there. And so the fluff kind of came afterwards because we knew where each other stood, you know. So I think that's a great way to go.
Yeah, definitely. I have a whole bunch of books that I recommend to my clients and to everyone, but this one in particular, it's called Deeper Dating: How to Drop the Games of Seduction and Discover the Power of Intimacy. You don't need to look perfect, act confident, or play hard to get to find real love.
Wow.
This is a great resource, like especially when everyone's online dating and there's so much bull crap in online dating. This book is all about discover who you really are deep down and then share that pretty early on so that the person can know the real you, and either they like you and that's great, or they don't and you move on. There you go, the whole book in 2
And if
sentences.
you're dating Amanda, you got about an hour and a half to do that.
let's go. I got things to do. No.
All right, so I'm going to share this video before we go, and then we'll close out. All right, it's just going to show a little bit of what's coming up next on our programs for this week.
All right, and then also my website is hearthunterslovecoaching.com.
All right, so that's what's going to be coming up this week and next week. Please stay tuned for those programs that you saw. Oscar is going to be coming up next with the last love letter at 1:00. So stay tuned for that, and we will see you then. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.